Hello. It's only been about a minute since I've talked to the camera like this. COVID has really screwed up a lot of things. Wedding season for me is absolutely swamped. But today I thought I'd make a video on the top 8 things that weddings have taught me about love and relationships. If you're a photographer watching this, then this might not be as relevant for you, so you're more than welcome to go watch one of my previous videos or just wait for something upcoming which will be exciting. If you're a couple watching this who wants to know a little bit about me and my thoughts on love and relationships, then keep watching and maybe you might learn a thing or two that impact, your special day coming up. But without further ado, let's get into the video. Number 1, teamwork truly makes the dream work. There's so many times in a pre-wedding consult where I get to sit down with my couples and I basically have a conversation around, their wedding and the planning stage. Now, there's this common thing that I've just realized. 90% of women within most of those relationships will rise to the occasion, and I'll mostly be talking to them. Now, this point particularly is really valid towards men and what I have to say. So sorry, men, if you're watching this, because I'm kind of exposing this side. But most men tend to take a bit of a back seat. Not to say there's anything wrong with that if, the women in the relationship have a bit of a vision. And sometimes most men come in with the attitude of going, it's our day, but she has a very big idea in terms of what she really wants. So I'm not going to jeopardize that. I'm going to let her take the reins. Now, there's nothing really wrong with that. But men, if I could offer a bit of an insight. Some of the most beautiful weddings that I've captured have been the ones where both partners equally come to the table and talk about what they like and dislike about their upcoming wedding day. Now, that's not to say that someone who isn't going to have a fun experience, but from personal experience, I've always thought that the best weddings are the ones where I get to see both of their, wants come through. I get to see exactly what they envision for their wedding day and how they choose to communicate that. And you get to see a very teamwork mentality, right? It's like your best friend is, your partner for life, and you get to see them, work with you in terms of planning your special day. So men, if you're watching this with your partner and this leads into a conversation about that topic, then my bad. But basically, don't be afraid to just contribute a little bit more. And I think there is something really wonderful with the relationship that I capture where, both partners equally voice how they feel about their wedding day and what they really want. And women, I know you perhaps have a vision about, specifically what type of wedding you really want, how you want it to happen, your outfits, your post-wedding photo shoots, your pre-wedding photo shoots, your pre-wedding events, all of it. Trust me, I really get it. But do hear your partner out. Just ask them about their opinion a little bit more. Figure out what part do they really like, or find out, is there something that they really want on their wedding day? Because the reality is that most women have thought about their wedding day a lot more than most men. And there's nothing really wrong with that. It just means that sometimes it could fall into the trap of going, there's little to no room of negotiating from what that dream wedding is for me and what I really want it to be like. So yeah, just food for thought on that topic. I hope I haven't started an argument here, but it's just something that I've realized what is really beautiful about, that teamwork effort when it comes to wedding planning. Number 2, never stop trying to impress your partner. Now, I gush like a little schoolboy whenever I see little moments like this happening. And there are parts in a wedding where leading up to the day or even on the day, one of the two partners or even both equally do something that's just a little bit above and beyond, something very unexpected, something very minor. And I'm not saying it's like I said, it's not a grandiose gesture. It's not like, oh honey, I bought us a Lamborghini for our wedding day because I know how much you love cars. Unless that is something that your partner's really passionate for, then awesome. But there are little things, subtle things that I think people can do even on their wedding day. And sometimes I don't even see it from the couple themselves. Sometimes I see it from the couple's parents. And I think that's really wonderful. That is truly actually quite beautiful if there are moments where you're marrying your best friend on your wedding day, as if that is not a big enough indicator for how much you must really love them. But there are some relationships, there are some weddings where, a groom might write a letter to his partner. There are some relationships where the bride might do a surprise dance. Or there are some really beautiful speeches at receptions where they prepare like something that just takes their partner off guard. And I always thought it was those 1% moments that really encapsulate how much someone really means to somebody else. And it's not to do with the grandest of things, by the way. It's always the little things. Sometimes it might not even be apparent to a wedding photographer or to your family members. Sometimes it's just literally between the two of you. But if you can share those moments on your wedding day and even get your photographer in on it, I think that creates some really great, stunning images for your gallery. So something to be mindful for. Number 3, being vulnerable is really okay. There's a lot of maturity that I see in relationships where, couples often express their vulnerability towards one another, and taking it back to simple things like reception speeches or wedding speeches, or even letters that people write to their partner. When they're reading these things out, of course I pay attention because I'm just curious. Even in those speeches, there are things that people say that have happened in their life that their partners have helped them come out of. And I think, it's that ability to express the vulnerability, that too, mind you, on a public day where everyone can see and everyone can hear, which I think is really nice. There is a part where it feels safe almost, and kind of refreshing to see that people have led themselves to be in a space where they can not necessarily publicize, but be okay with putting their weaknesses, be okay with putting their insecurities, be okay with putting their vulnerabilities out for public eye. Be it through a letter or be it through a speech, it doesn't really matter how. But I think it's those relationships that I come to really appreciate the most, because vulnerability is really hard, and spending your time with someone and not having them judge you for it, for all of those weaknesses or insecurities you might have, is also really hard. But then for them to accept it, communicate that through it, and even be okay with publicizing a little bit about it, that for me is real big growth. And I think there is a moment that needs to be appreciated with things like that, because again, emotions are high. Your wedding day is kind of the most emotional, happiest day of your life. So it's okay to show a little bit more about, the not so pretty sides of things that have happened in life, and how your partner has been a contributing factor towards you being okay with that and even better with it. Number 4, everyone has a unique timeline for love. I once got told by a friend of mine that relationships should not be judged by length, but by depth. And that is genuinely because everyone has a unique timeline for love. What's actually really interesting is that whenever I meet a couple during the consultation stage, one of the several questions I end up asking them ends up being, how long have you guys been together for? Now, that has no relevancy for me being a wedding photographer. That's just merely, I ask that out of pure interest and curiosity. Now, the answers that I will get will often range somewhere between 6 months to almost about 12 years. And what astounds me is if you take people from either sides of those spectrums and put them in a room, I can guarantee you it will be very difficult to tell the length of the relationship apart. There are so many times where I meet couples who have such great chemistry, they're incredibly infectious, their energy, it rubs off on you, and their mannerisms are different, they've got their own little quirky traits, and they are literally two peas in a pod, where you get to see two people come together and spend, I guess a lifetime together, but also celebrate the fact that they've had their own journey. And that is something to be appreciated and recognized. Too often people get consumed with how long is the right amount of time, like what is the appropriate timeline to get to know someone before you get married. And that's natural to ask yourself that question and to ask other people, because you're trying to figure it out and you want to do it the right way. There's really not a specific answer that one can give to you that tells you that this is the right time. There's not really a formula, if you will, for length, in terms of, well, we've been dating for 3 years, now we're ready. We've been dating for 7 years, now we're ready. Or 6 months, now we're ready. The answer is really whatever you want it to be honest. And I think it's the classic case of you just know. And as cliche as an answer that is, as stereotypical as a, hopeless romantic, and I would definitely appreciate the fact that I am one, it kind of just works because you know what matters to you, you know what is important to you, and based on that, you're ready at your own pace. So if you're watching this, and you're a couple who are engaged, and you're still trying to figure the answer to that question out, there's no point, because it doesn't really matter what other people have been dating for, nor it doesn't really matter what their timeline is. What matters is the fact that, cool, you're happy, your partner's great, and you guys are looking forward to getting married to one another, and it doesn't really matter if it's been 2 years or 4 years or 6 years. You will know based on your comfort zones how appropriate it is for you. Number 5, there is no such thing as the perfect wedding nor perfect relationship. There's a sentence that couples often drop to me in the pre-wedding stage, especially the planning part, where they're genuinely like, we really want the perfect dream wedding. Now, there's 2 elements to this. I'm kind of almost torn between 2 parts. One being, that's really sweet because, these guys have probably looked forward to, this special day for a very long time, to marry their best friend, their teammate, their partner in crime, and to have a truly remarkable wedding. And as a photographer, I want to support them in on that journey. But then there's the other part, kind of playing devil's advocate. And it basically says in my mind that, well, there's no such real big thing as the dream wedding. For instance, let's talk about your relationship, right? Your relationship and other people's relationship are never going to be perfect. So it's fair to assume that your wedding day can probably also have a few mistakes that you can't control. For instance, if you're living in Sydney, you would have realized how much of a rain fest the last couple of weekends have been. It has been pissing down buckets of rain almost every shoot that I've had. And it's been so frustrating because you don't get that dreamy sunset vibe. You don't get that, the flary golden photos that you perhaps would want. But this is a classic example of things outside your control. The other point obvious thing was COVID, right? I mean, it was a part where it screwed up people's attendance. People couldn't even make it from overseas. And it did impact, people being at the wedding day. Some dates had to be moved, some venues had to be changed because they had, unavailabilities based on new dates. So there are elements in your wedding that you can't control, that you can't make picture perfect, if you will. So don't make your relationship the same either. I think one of the most inherently beautiful things about, wedding planning and even relationships is the room for error. People often plan certain things in advance to go, well, this might be out of our control, and we just have to be okay with that. Relationships shouldn't be any different. And I think, being in one and falling over, you learn to pick yourself back up. There are moments of growth that comes through that. So celebrate it, but don't try and perfect it because it is incredibly overrated. Number 6, online dating is more common than you think. So get this, statistically, 33% of couples have met online through some form of online dating app. Now, be that as it may, your Tinders, Hinge, Bumble, even Shaadi.com. But there's also other methods like, your Instagram slide-ins into someone's DMs, LinkedIn, funnily enough. And I think there is a stigma that needs to be addressed. So I want to create a dialogue around the fact that people have this mentality, and you know what, this might even deserve its own separate YouTube video, that online dating is quote-unquote unorganic. There's no natural element to meeting someone when it comes to online because you're kind of swiping left and right. It's almost like fast food if you think about it. Like, we have the ability to go out on different apps and meet all these different people and swipe left and right based on whatever we find attractive, and it provides us with this wealth of people to meet. Now, it's hard to sometimes build a connection through that, but does that mean it's impossible? Well, not really, no. And people often have this stereotype about, I want to have that organic meetup. I want to have the ability to meet my best friend, my partner, through a social environment, through work, through uni, whatever it might actually be. But I think it's really overrated. I mean, especially in a time with COVID. Let's talk about that for a second. When COVID hit, it literally meant that we couldn't go out and meet new people. So online dating was perhaps the most easiest way to get around that barrier. Almost every single app had integrated FaceTime capabilities, so you could video chat with people that you had met. And it really tried to cater for an age where going out and socializing wasn't as common as what it was maybe literally a year and a bit ago. So if you're out there single, first of all, thank you for watching this video. But second of all, do question and create a dialogue around why it is that you think that online dating isn't for you. Because, testament to my couples who I've met online, I genuinely cannot tell a relationship that I've met online as opposed to a relationship that people have met quote unquote organically. People are just as infectious, people are just as energetic, people are just as enthusiastic about their partner with great emotions, great compatibility. And I think it's something that is to be talked about because, I had a couple who said, look, we met through Shaadi.com, but we're not really advocating for that and we don't publicize it. My response in my mind was, well, why not? Right? Like, what's the harm in saying that you met through a website that is typically designed for people to go, they just want to get married within the first couple of weeks? To be fair, you can work at your own pace, but the reality is that people have this negative mentality about online dating and what it really does and how fast paced it is. But I think it has the ability for you to just meet hundreds of people and take it at a pace that you're comfortable with. So there you go. Online dating, it's more common than you actually think. Number 7. You can't please everyone. I think there's always one or two people that comes to our mind, perhaps an Indian auntie or uncle that we know we have. And leading up to our wedding days, we might think about that person and how much that person is going to create drama, right? Like, no matter what you do, you can objectively, create a 10 out of 10 wedding, but that one Indian auntie or uncle will always have something to say. There will always be someone who comments on the food, and I don't know why food is 90% of everyone's problems for some reason. The decoration, the venue being so far from home, the limited parking, or even, get this, the weather that you can't control is now your problem because it rained and their hair got frizzy. So I think weddings are similar to relationships, right? Like, you can't keep everyone happy in a wedding because there are things that just they don't perhaps won't like. But even with your relationship, there are things that you guys are going to experience that people might have a comment on that's different from yours. That's okay. Like, you know, it reminds me of an Indian TV serial where, you know, people are just consumed with watching what happens in other people's lives, and they're eating popcorn, or they're just really immersed in the show, and they talk about it with their friends. They're like, oh my god, like, what's happening? And it creates this consciousness that we perhaps live by about other people judging our relationship, right? And maybe us comparing ourselves to somebody else's relationship who is objectively, not that that is really a thing, but better, quote unquote, than ours. And I think it's very silly to just look at that and go, well, let's people please everyone. Because the reality is, everyone's going to complain, right? Some people are genuinely happy for you. They're the nice people. But everybody else, they will have something to say. And and again, this really ties in with having the perfect wedding, quote unquote. But, you know, there are moments, especially even with parents, where you cannot keep them happy always, all the time. So that's okay. So don't stress about someone rocking up being a bit upset because XYZ happened that impacted them. That's the them problem, and that's not a you problem. And finally, number 8, love languages are a real thing. Now, that's not a very revolutionary thing for me to say. It's not really a mic drop moment, but if I can comment as a wedding photographer, I think it's actually really cute, right? I get to see people's love language actually come through on a wedding day. I mean, you know, for instance, some people are really massive on physical touch. They love PDA. People are really comfortable and confident in front of the camera. That's awesome. Some people obviously aren't because they're perhaps a bit more conservative. That's totally fine. Even during pre-wedding, when people are gifting gifts or letters or these little moments where they give something to their partner, and I get to capture that and see something that's inherently really beautiful, but also really downplayed. Like, I might not think it's a big deal because I'm not obviously in the relationship, but for that person, it's a massive gesture. So couples, if you're watching this video and you guys haven't already talked about your love languages, after this video, don't cut away from it now, go back and ask yourselves what your love languages are, or go back and do the test and figure out what it is that you guys are really compatible with, or how you guys like to show affection, because funnily enough, that will translate very interestingly on your wedding day. And as a photographer, someone who third wheels couples for a living, I get to see this unfold, and I think there's something really beautiful about seeing people's love language come through on the most happiest, emotional, monumental day of someone's life. So there you guys go. Those are 8 things that I've learnt through weddings about relationships and love. And, you know, I get to learn each and every weekend about different couples and their different journeys. And I might make another video about this down the line. But for now, as a wedding photographer, this is something that I've grown with. And for shooting almost about 5 years now, it's taught me certain things that I didn't realize before. If you guys like this video, don't forget to hit that like button, comment down below. Let me know what are some things that you guys have learned about attending weddings, about love and relationships. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you guys haven't already. If you are tuning into the podcast, don't forget to rate it 5 stars. Comment also, let us know. I will read your reviews out in the next episode, so do share that. And for now, I will see you kids in the very next video. Peace.